Hey, welcome everybody to the Hurdie Burk Internet Broadcast Network from the state of the art studios right here in Round Rock, Texas. Beautiful studio, huh, John?
It is.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sitting here with John Russell tonight, and the cool thing about this is we have no agenda. We are we are beta testing a hybrid political show, but I want to tell you guys, clear your decks a little bit, tell you how this is going to work. We're just going to talk, ad lib, put our 2 cents in, try to keep it fun and good natured. And John and I have different opinions, but we think a lot alike. So it'll be interesting to see what type of things, John, right, we come up with and discuss. But the way it's going to work is we're going to beta test a couple shows. We'll eventually open up the Q&A to it once we get a little shows under our belt and figure out agendas and things. But John was the one that came up with the hybrid political thinking. We'll do a few hand claps. So let's do that to introduce that we're here live, okay? And when you hear this, that means somebody made a good point. So I'm going to be clicking this for me all the time. John's not going to get any good points tonight. No.
Am I going to get the booze?
Yeah, hold it. I think I have those. Hold it. I got one for you, okay? Remember this show? The Bong Show.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Yeah. That's the one we'll use.
By the way, that guy was in the CIA. You knew that, right?
Well,
did you know that?
Yeah, let's give him a good hand for
Yeah.
I remember that show. I loved that show.
Yeah, that guy was so goofy.
I mean, that and the Green Hornet were my favorite shows back then. Couldn't help it. Loved it. All
That
right.
explains a lot there.
Thank you, man. So you know what? Eventually, we're going to look for sponsors. We're not concerned about that right now. We thought we just had some fun tonight. So I want to introduce you to John Russell. John is located here. I guess you're in Round Rock, right?
No,
you're in Austin.
I'm in Austin. Yeah,
But Russell Consulting.
the Russell
Guy's a
Consulting
genius
Group.
with business, man. He really makes them rock. And he also has a political science degree, which I said on my post last night. That puts me at a huge disadvantage, but I will not fold like a lawn chair.
Well, I don't have a political science degree. I did take poli-sci
Well, you
in
know
college.
what I'm saying. You've got
but I have been a political junkie since I was 14. In
Oh,
fact, I got kicked out of Boy Scouts.
Oh, no.
Over politics.
Not the way we want to start the show, John.
Well, I know, but that's just what kind of happened.
Boy Scouts is not what I would have said. But it's cool. So anyhow, guys, this show will be archived. If you happen to be listening in or come in, we don't really care if we have listeners tonight because we're going to put it up on the archive. Some of you might be interested in coming in the live link tonight on YouTube, but it's archived. We'll make a custom player out of it and have some fun. So we're going to try to go an hour, which is easy for us.
That's
right. And we're going to try to make the show an hour whenever we decide to do it. We'll get into a routine, pick a night time. We might even do these some of the day, depending on our schedules. But, John, you came up with this great name for this show called Hybrid Political Thinking. And you being the genius here in the chair next to me, how did you come up with that? Because we were having coffee when you just said that. So what does that mean, since we're going to be talking about?
So, like what I was sharing earlier, I think that evolved out of a conversation I had with when I was living over in we had a place over in Brushy Creek in Round Rock, and the neighbor kid comes across. He says, "I wanted to do a paper on you. It's for I guess it was for his social studies class or something." Right. And I said, "Why do you want to do a paper on me?" He said, "Well, because you're so interesting with your political views. I want to know, are you a conservative or are you a liberal?" And so he started asking me all these questions, and on some things I said, "Well, no, I'm for this. No, I'm against that. No, I'm against that, and I'm for that." And he looked at me. He says, "Well, you're really liberal on some things, and you're really conservative on others. I mean, you're all over the map. So, are you a conservative or a liberal?" I said, "No, I'm
hybrid.
A subscriber to hybrid political thinking, and at the end of the day." That's exactly what I am, because part of, I think, political thinking needs to go along with what's best for the country at the time.
Right.
And what I believed maybe 20 years ago is not what I necessarily believe now.
There you go.
20 years before then, maybe I believed in something else. So what's best for the country right now? And I have, I look at these two bipolar opposite views. You have the far left and you have the far right, and they're shouting at each other, and all the rest of us are somewhere in between on the most part. And at the end of the day, nothing gets done in Congress, nothing gets done in other government policies. because the people in the middle never really have a say.
Yeah.
And that's part of this conversation. Including us, yeah.
Which is a big deal.
That's right.
Right. So you're telling me you've changed from being right to wrong now, or more from wrong to right?
No, I went from...
See, I told you I was going to not fold like a lawn chair tonight. No,
I went from left to right to left to correct.
To correct.
To correct,
okay.
which is the hybrid.
All right, cool. Well, you know what? Listen, you guys are going to get our opinions and our thoughts. We may not be right. We may not be wrong. We may be totally off base, but we're just giving you good old American boys' opinions about stuff and how we see it is. And what I thought was cool about the show, John, was we're able to kind of bring a layman's. You know, they always bring on these major news stations spokespeople in, right, that are experts in one area and have an agenda or have a spin, right? It doesn't matter which one you watch. Some are better than others. And we're coming at you from what we're sitting here going, shaking our heads at, going, I don't get that, right? So we've got problems in Syria, big time. We've got a Congress that can't make a decision.
That's
keeps drilling us into debt, right? Because they can't figure out how to get along. We've got the prime example today was the new Speaker of the House who bowed out at the last minute for obvious reasons. I think you know the answer, and that might be something we want to talk about. But also,
and it was not a sex scandal either.
It was just stupidity. I mean, I'm sorry, it was just a statement.
Well, no, but you know what he said. Well, he didn't think ahead before he said it.
But don't you think, John, in today? And first of all, let's give him the reason you think. All right, and then let's talk about the thought I was just coming up with. So why do you think he all of a sudden bowed out today?
Well, when he was initially talking about some of his thoughts and his positions and the fact that he was behind the Benghazi hearings and committees, he said that that was one of the beautiful things behind the Republican agenda to make Hillary Clinton look bad. But that was a soundbite, and that's another thing. Everything is a soundbite.
Yeah.
So the mainstream media, which is primarily on the left, they ran with it. They said, see, we told you. Well, the Republican majority got really upset, the majority in the House, of course, that they were trying. It was a PR nightmare then, because all of a sudden they look like the bad guys. They're wasting all the taxpayers' money. And so they said, dude, you're an idiot. Sorry, you're going to have to go. But you know what he wasn't allowed to finish saying is the other part, and he went back full circle. But that's the thing with sound bites.
You can make them and spin them sound bites, knowing this from being in the media myself and you
That's
too.
Right.
You can make a story fit your agenda by taking sound bites. And it's not reading one sentence in a paragraph in a book and determining what the whole book's about.
Correct.
Can't do it. So if you don't extend out the whole conversation, let somebody finish their thoughts. But here's the problem. I saw him on, I think it was Fox on Sunday, and they were grilling him. Right?
Yeah.
And he kept trying to backpedal. Because that soundbite was coming back to haunt him.
That's right.
So do you really believe that? Then you hear him wish-washy. Well, no, I didn't say that. Well, yeah, you did. Here's the clip. Okay. So,
correct.
So once you've already lost that trust and confidence,
credibility,
you're in this political environment where people are going to have cameras on you, right? And they're going to take everything you say, right? And use it against you or for you. In this case, it hurt him. And I'm like you. I didn't hear the reason today because they weren't talking about it. But we all know. See, that's the good old American boy sitting here behind the mic. We know the reason.
That's right. And you just said something about Fox. We have to remember, whether we like it or not, on the most part, Fox is the political mouthpiece of the Republican Party, just like the mainstream media. And how far liberal do we want to go? MSNBC is really out on it. They're the mouthpiece for the Democratic Party.
Right.
So when Fox decides they're upset, it's kind of like, get this guy out because we need to get somebody else in.
Right. And even that is turned into, I'll tell you something. Kit Carson, was a friend of mine. You may not know who he is. He's a movie producer. His son Hunter Carson's up in Dallas. He wrote, scripts for Breathless and all those movies. Big time writer. He wrote in one of his movie lines, it had to pertain to this movie. He said, "The truth is a hard thing. It's a small thing. It's a hard thing to find."
Correct.
And
that's right.
That statement stuck with me for a lot of years, because as you were searching in whether you work for a business or you work for, if you're watching it, you're trying to read between the lines, you got to have some sense of what's being said, right? And he always said, you got to drill into that small piece, the piece that's right. Because,
that's right.
And so as an American citizen in the middle, John, I feel like we don't get information. We don't get right and proper information to make good choices.
You're correct.
And I want your feelings on that, because what bothers me is that you're influenced by the media. Perception. You've talked about this a lot. You can get into that in a minute. It's not necessarily what it is. It's the perception of what it is, right? So your feelings on how we're stuck in the middle. I know you've got some stuff you're going to be talking about the middle class down the road. If you want to talk about that, you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But why don't we not get that? Why do we, the people, not get informed truthfully about issues? How did that happen? How did that evolve?
Well, even if we were properly informed, the tragedy of it is that many people don't care. They don't want to be informed. They just want to be blissfully ignorant. They're more interested in the Kardashians,
Tex-Mex,
and all that other nonsense. And part of that, that's the interesting part, because so many people out there are working so hard and having to deal with so many things that they just want to basically turn it off. If it has anything to do with news, I don't want to think about it. I've been dealing with all this other stuff. I've been driving through traffic. I've had a terrible boss, whatever. Let me just entertain myself by hearing about football, which isn't bad, but that's another thing.
An entertainment release.
The Kardashians or whatever else you have. It's basically intellectual porn light is what I like to call it.
Or dumbed down.
Dumbed down, that's right.
And that is the thing. I mean, I wonder percentage-wise, John, sometimes how much people actually keep up with what's going on in the world.
Well, the millennials, this is one of the reasons why Stephen Colbert
went after that market.
And he's brilliant. You talk to millennials, they get a lot of that information from shows like Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, they watch YouTube videos and shows that cater to their Tex-Mex and to their instant gratification, right?
Correct.
But a lot of it's entertainment. We've been around entertainment for a long time, but you got multiple venues of entertainment you can watch on your phone. You can escape from the world really easily, right up to something bad happens.
And going back to the news,
yeah,
you have to remember that bad news sells. So, I mean, why would people who are they feel overwhelmed want to turn on the news only to hear that, somebody got murdered down the road, a house burned down in the other town, we're on the verge of a third world war in Syria? I mean, it's like, I don't want to deal with this stuff.
So good news never attracts things. Isn't that amazing?
The good news is generally at the last 2 minutes. Like tonight, I was watching the news.
Yep.
Everything was okay. We started talking about Syria, the Russians. Then they went into the floods in the Carolinas, and they went into the ship that sank. Finally, at the very end,
they got some good news.
This cute story about a mailman and this little 4-year-old kid. That was the only good news. So they try to leave you on a little bit of a high note, but you're like on the verge of suicide before you get to that point.
You're already in doggy downer.
You're like, oh my God, where's my vodka? What do I need?
Yeah. Okay. So you think McCarthy? I agree. All right. So let's give ourselves a doorbell.
I think we should.
All right. So we agree that we think what he said a week ago.
Correct.
Hump knocked out his chances, and so he blithely just said he's backing out, and nobody's been talking about it.
That's right.
Everybody's been guessing. All the news media has been putting their opinion. That's another thing. Can we talk about this for a minute? Hate to rush into another one, but what I hate about news in general is that as soon as something bad happens, you have these experts on speculating and giving their opinions without any facts, without waiting for the facts. They're just pushing out information, right? Well, I think if this had happened, and by the time it gets spun, turned, and washed around, then you come back and find out that wasn't it at all.
Well, you know what it's like. If you take your clothes out of the dryer immediately, and you go ahead and take your hand over your shirt, you're not going to have to iron it in most cases.
Right.
That's how the news is. It's like, okay, we don't want to really iron this information, but it's hot right now.
It's instant. We got to beat the other guys.
That's right.
So it's all about getting as much information out as quickly as possible. But the problem with that, in my opinion, is that you get saturated with so much information, it's hard to decipher what the true story is, right?
I'd say that in a lot of cases, but not in all cases. Case in point is, there's we're talking about politics right now for a minute, and you get a guy like David Gergen, who is a political genius. And when they go to him, they say, okay, David, what really went on today? And David Gergen starts talking about it. The guy knows what he's talking to. And someone asked me, who would I like to have dinner with? Who would be my dream dinner conversation? Would be with him, because the man is so intelligent, and being a political junkie as I am. You
just love it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so let's move from this. Let's go into Congress, because this is where our laws are made. This is where decisions are made about our laws and voted on, and direction, supposedly. Correct. Right? And you've got a Congress that is now so divided that no matter whether it's the truth on one side or the other, they stick to their dogmatic, opinions, right? And they don't give. So if that's the case, where are all these debt problems and things ever going to be solved if you can't get two sides to think about the word compromise at all?
It's not going to happen, because we have jerry-rigged the congressional districts, and both sides are just as guilty. In California, the Democrats jerry-rigged California, and the great state of Texas, which is where we are here, the Republicans jerry-rigged everything here. So what you get is all these bipolar opposites.
That was good. I like the voice.
And they go there, and they're representing their jerry-rigged people.
Right.
Which, by the way, the jerry-rigged people don't represent the rest of the country.
Right.
So everyone, and that's, by the way, why people like Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are doing so well in the polls, because people are tired of the bullshit.
They're so much outside. They're all out. You rally to, right?
Correct.
I'm being heard.
That's right.
Somebody's representing me with a voice I've never heard before. I'm not getting the same old dogmatic speech, lower taxes, let's see, raise, whatever. Let me tell you something. You go back and look at any election from 1958 on, and go back and look at the tapes. You know what the main themes are? Lower taxes and better education and better middle class. Same message. Doesn't matter what year it is. It's always the same message. And everybody's going like, that's new.
No, it's not.
It's not new.
Interesting enough, you said 1950s. The tax rate in the 1950s was so high.
Yep.
So high. And we're like at half of that tax rate today, and yet they still want to lower it. And they have you can't keep lowering the tax rate by cutting, because here's the other thing that fascinates me. Okay, people think, I remember I was standing in the line with my son, because he's going to get his license, right?
Right.
Standing in line, and this woman in front of me, she starts saying, I can't believe it. These people are just so incompetent. There's 3 windows that are closed. There's only 2 windows that are open. And I'm losing half of my day. I've got to be at work.
God,
and I said,
I got to give you another doorbell for that.
I said, let me ask you something, ma'am. I'm just curious. Now, don't take this the wrong way, but are you a Tea Party person? Oh, yeah. Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is all incompetent, and we got to get rid of this because they're incompetent. I said, Well, they got rid of 3 windows already. There's only 2 left. Now, you wanted someone to go and speak on your behalf and cut taxes. And guess what? You have spent 4 hours of your day where you're not getting paid to wait to get what you need. Now, how much is that costing you? So let me ask you this. Was that tax cut worth it? Or we drove out to Enchanted Rock, $28 for us to get in there. I said, what the heck's going on? This is like a state park. Yeah, but you know, when they cut taxes in Washington, it trickled down to Texas. And then they said, well, we're just going to pass it on as user fees. Well, you never get around it. One way or another, you pay. The toll roads are the other example.
Right.
We don't want to pay gas taxes, so now we got these toll roads that are reserved for the rich.
Okay, good.
The middle class is getting screwed by its own demise.
By the way, Don and I don't always agree. We just want everybody to know that. It's a hybrid political show, and so we're able to banter off each other a little bit. And so I'm going to drill down a little bit on what I think, okay? And then we'll throw it together and see if we can come up with
that'll make it fun.
That's what we're talking about,
that'll
right?
Make it fun.
Good buddies, maybe over a beer at some point.
That's right. Well, it'll get really interesting.
All right, so I think that the problem with taxes is not that Americans don't believe they should have tax, because it is the way to create the revenues for the United States of America. It's how the darn stuff's spent, John. There's no accountability on how this money gets spent. It gets wasted. I mean, these politicians that don't get on commercial airplanes and fly these big jets.
Couldn't agree with you more.
And you know what I'm saying? So
we agree so far.
Right. The tax is not the problem. If they were to say do a flat tax of 25%, just everybody, and yeah, it can be. We can argue the details on where that goes and the less fortunate. But overall, if they were to take the money and have a real budget and stick to it and not waste it, right, then I think you wouldn't have this discussion.
Well, and you know, you brought up a good case in point that I agree with, and I'm remembering that they were going to improve Amtrak between Seattle and Portland, and they said they were going to put in kind of a quasi bullet train. Now, listen. I used to live in Europe. I know what a bullet train is.
It's fast.
And they're smooth and they're efficient.
Right.
And I can still remember when I was in Stuttgart, I had to get the train to Prague, and the train was leaving at 8 p.m. I mean, 8 a.m., not p.m., sorry, 8 a.m. I run down there with my suitcase, and the train's starting to...
Yeah.
And I said to the conductor, that's my train. It's my train. And he looks at his arm and he points to the clock. He says, what time is it? And I said, it's 8:01. He says, that's right. You're a minute late and the train has gone. That was it. Now, you know, if we're in the U.S. and we're waiting, we're going to be late for the train. It's like, I want to be late for the train because I know it's going to be 2 hours late getting here.
Right.
And I went that route. I took Amtrak twice from Denver to Seattle. The first time, the whole thing ended up being 4.5 hours late. The second time, the entire trip ended up being 6 hours late.
Wow.
So why? You know, so they were talking about this bullet train thing. Well, you know what they did with the bullet train? It went up from 62 miles an hour
to 100.
No, 68.
68.
We're improving. It's more like a bullet now.
So what you're saying is the post office and Amtrak run really efficiently by the government.
Exactly. And there lies the problem, because
there
are other special interests that clog things up.
Right.
That's also part of it.
And I've often said that you should give the private sector the first chance at those opportunities to make it efficient, because they can be managed, they can be cost controlled, they can be put in the right hands of people that know how to run business, as opposed to giving the government a big blank check and it's not their money, so they don't care.
Okay,
Did I say the right thing?
I used to agree with what you just said.
I'm going to give myself a bell for that one. I'm getting ready to get run over before.
I agree. Matter of fact, when I was a political lobbyist, we were pushing, this is in Hawaii, we were pushing legislation to privatize a lot of things. But here's what happens. One of the most graphic example of privatized government going to privatization are the prisons. It's big business.
Yep.
They just now figured that out, how much money it's costing to incarcerate all these people.
Right.
It's because it's big business.
Yep.
And you get a lobby group with these businesses, and they the K Street folks, and they say, hey, well, privatize this, and we'll make sure you get a big kickback when it comes to election time. So then privatize can corrupt a good intention.
Yep.
So if it's responsible privatization and it's monitored still by the government to make sure that they're all the up and up, that would work.
Yeah, and that's fine. I don't mind the government program being instituted by government. For instance, before we had email, before we had FedEx, before we had UPS, we had post office, and you had a zip code. Brilliant system, right? Because they could drill it down just like a distribution center right down to a neighborhood.
Do you know when they went into
I have no idea, but my point is that rather than see the problem coming and letting it just go and go and go, they didn't come up with solutions. And this is what kills me. They just have this black hole that they just look down and go, yeah, it's getting deeper, but you know what? Let's go eat lunch.
Okay,
let's go have a beer.
Oh my God!
Let's go have a beer.
You opened up a can of worms. So when I lived
I'm ringing the doorbell for you.
When I lived in Hawaii, and this is so embarrassing, they had the thing called the Wahiawa Bridge.
Right.
Now the Wahiawa Bridge was about if you go over a freeway. That's how short the Wahiawa Bridge is. True story now, I'm about to tell you. 4.5 years to build the Wahiawa Bridge. They had a film crew from CNN, and they went up there and they said, this is a special story. We want to know why it's taking so long to build the Wahiawa Bridge. But we're going to interview the engineer guy. Now, if any of you have been in Hawaii, you know they have a special way of speaking. It's called pidgin.
Yeah.
So the guy goes, okay, now let me tell you what the problem is. When you pour the concrete into the water, the bugger, gets all, woo, well, you know what's the problem. I mean, oh my God, this is on national TV. This is so embarrassing. And they had another situation where they had these two contracting firms that were having a race they were building a viaduct to the airport directly off of H1 freeway. It was a direct viaduct dropping right down into the airport. And they said, okay, we're going to have a race. Whoever gets to the middle first wins. Well, so you had this crew here and this crew here, and they ended up like this. It was
it missed it
by 6 feet.
Yeah.
So, the engineer blamed the contractor. The contractor blamed the city. The city blamed the state. And at the end of the day, the state of Hawaii was stuck with an $84 million bill to take that end of it apart and redo it correctly.
Amazing.
That's government inefficiency.
Right, and that's my point. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get back to the Congress and let's talk about as a good old American boys talking on the radio, right?
That's right.
I'm going to share something. I hope they listen to this thing. Ladder, and that is good leaders, good business people learn skills to compromise, to be open-minded, and to make decisions based on the best choice from all the angles.
That would be right.
That's the
if it was done correctly. Yes,
if it's done correctly. So that's the perfect world.
That is.
But we haven't had the perfect world. We haven't even had 50%, let's say 80% of the perfect world since I can remember. At least the last 10 years.
No,
maybe 15 years.
You're right. The closest we got to that was probably the relationship between. You're right, between Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
Right.
And there's been books written about that relationship. They would go at it like dogs, and at the end of the day,
they came up with compromise choices.
And then Reagan would say, "Well, we're still going to go out and get a beer, aren't we?"
Man, you're making me ring these bells tonight.
And that was part of that was part of the fun of their relationship, though, and work. But it all began to fall apart in the 1960s. Watergate.
Oh yeah.
Was the beginning of the end. Carter came in. He says, he's going to bring sanity
integrity
back to it.
Mm-hmm.
and everything just kind of fell apart. You know.
So here's the deal. So these guys are, a lot of them are lawyers, right? That are congressmen, right? Some of them have been in term for millions of years up there.
And they like to argue.
They love to argue and make their points. But at some point, in order for the country to roll, right, to get the right kind of laws, to get the compromise laws, decisions are being made that we don't even know about, right? Large ones. And some decisions, like I'm not against, and I'll tell you my feelings on Obamacare in a minute, are being made without even reading it. Come on. I would not sign a proposal for my business unless I read the whole thing. I might even take it to my lawyer and make sure I didn't miss anything, right?
You're right.
And then I'll say, I'll make a decision on this. Why can't these guys get together, sit down, and say, look, they should have a motto on their desk. Every decision I make affects the American people. They should stick that on their computers and read it 5 times in the morning before they start their day.
Well, they can't help themselves because have you been to Washington lately?
No, it's been a while.
Somebody said they had a great idea. They said every lobbyist that walks into the U.S. Capitol building should have some kind of an insignia on him. Does he or she represent big pharma? Does he or she represent big oil?
Right.
And you go big ag, you go all the way down the list. And those guys are walking in droves every day. And I know about lobbying because I was a lobbyist.
Right.
Though I wasn't a schmuck. These other guys are schmucks for the most part. But they're buddies. A lot of these guys, they're out of Congress and they go to work for a lobbying firm.
Right.
So they're influenced by lobbyists, and you have all these districts that have been jerry-rigged, and people are getting closer and closer to really figuring out why it's beyond not communicating well with each other. It's actual corruption what's going on.
Yep.
The whole healthcare bill, you brought it up. I'll go ahead and add a little salt and pepper on it. Add a little salt and pepper on it.
Well, we're just living away tonight.
So here we go.
Might as well go. All right.
That healthcare bill was hijacked by special interest groups. If you look at the original intention of it, it's nothing like the original intention is. So then they said, okay, well, we're going to try to compromise. So we'll give everything to what these folks want and what these folks want. And it ended up being a piece of garbage that only the special interest people are benefiting from. Big pharma and the insurance agencies, the insurance companies, and the big medical centers. So you talk about things that are overpriced. See this cup? I looked at my mom's bill when she was alive, and they charge for this cup $322.
Yeah, I think aspirin were like $30 a piece for 2.
Yeah, why do we put up with that crap?
Because we don't have a voice in rebellion against it because they own us. Okay, and that's the problem. All right.
Exactly.
No matter what road they go down, whether it's Obamacare or insurance rates were going up, no matter what, they always have, because they're buying this high-end tech equipment to kill cancers and more people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just a high-cost business to be in. Big, nice, beautiful hospital.
Some of it is, but some of it's just.
But basic care. Well, here's the thing. Going back to Obamacare first. Look, I'm all about having something out there, especially for the poor and the disadvantaged, right? I wished every single one of them could be covered. But this whole plan was set up to try to give those people a chance. So Texas is not an exchange state. So I'm going to use Texas. So the people that aren't making enough money go to sign up for the Obamacare plan. Well, if they're not making a certain income level and they're already poor, right, then they can't buy the plan unless they buy it at full cost. So the whole part of the program was to get these kids and these families insured in these states. If you're not an exchange, you don't have a chance.
Correct.
And you got to make X amount of salary. It does no good at the level of what it was all broadcast to be, you know. And I still don't like that the Supreme Court made it a tax bill. They couldn't get it passed without making it a tax bill. I may be wrong, and I'm sure you'll tell me if I am, and that's okay. But to my opinion, when you start mandating and then you start putting penalties on people, you're really talking about a tax. So would it have passed if they hadn't made it a tax bill? And my feeling is no. But the other thing is Congress shut the door, well, at least the Democrats in this case, right? Not the Republicans. I'll go after them too in a minute. But they went in a closed room, a bill this thick, and said, well, let's pass it. Without reading it, without seeing the long-term consequences, without seeing
you're absolutely right. And
our costs, we don't know what the real cost is going to be for 5 or 6 years down the road.
Nancy Pelosi, when she said, we'll know when we read it.
Oh.
Now, she is an example of why the government doesn't work.
It's broken. Right.
Yeah, why it's broken. And by the way, after the Democrats got that huge landslide with Obama.
Right.
What did they do with that? All the investment from that popularity. They did things stupid like, well, we're going to go ahead and, put a special tunnel underneath the freeway for the toads. Things like that. That's going to be stimulating the economy.
Right.
Just stupid things like, oh, look,
right.
I love toads. Don't get me wrong. Some of my best ex-girlfriends were toads.
Right.
But
hold it. It's your fault. You said it, not me. But there's a doorbell.
So the thing is let's not get stupid about it. We needed to stimulate the economy, but let's do it with a little bit of intelligence.
It wasn't thought out.
No.
It was thrown out there because things need to happen fast because it was bad, right? I get that.
But it turned into Christmas for the tax and spending folks.
Exactly. And wasn't it Obama that stood up before he got elected and said this to our faces? There will be no more lobbyists once I get elected.
Well, that lasted about 5 minutes.
Okay, understand.
Yeah.
So my point is that a lot of people voted for that because they wanted that out of Washington, so Congress could make the decisions themselves without being influenced by their constituents for their businesses and their districts and all that stuff, right?
I'll be the first to tell you, that's one of the reasons why I voted for Obama in 08, but I didn't.
Well, I can't give you a doorbell for that.
I didn't.
That's a bong.
Yeah, well,
I'm kidding.
That's
I'm
fine.
kidding with you, man.
But in the next election, I didn't vote.
I promise.
I didn't vote for either of those two guys.
I
had to do the third party thing again. I had no choice.
A lot of people did.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's okay. That's your choice, and that's your call, and that's nothing wrong with that. That's why we get a chance to vote, and that's what makes me mad also about this country being so polarized that I've seen friends lose friends on Facebook over politics. Do you understand? There's no reason for that. You should be able to have an open discussion, and if somebody starts using cuss words on your page, then fire them or delete them and tell them to straighten up or get the hell off your page, right? I mean, seriously, there's no need for it. If you can't have an intellectual discussion with me in a good debate, I don't want you as my friend, and I certainly don't want you in my life because you're being too negative to deal with. And if you're not open-minded, you won't be open-minded if it hits you side.
You're absolutely right. And you know what's good about an open conversation is sometimes I can be swayed by someone's argument. And I'm sure you could be also. But
I'm open-minded.
Yeah, because if you give me a good reason why I should believe otherwise, I'm going to listen to you.
Well, I want solutions.
Yeah.
We just got snookered out of the Middle East. Very few people are going to realize this, but they're starting to, right? Russia just went in the back door and tore us a new one. And you know what? There's not a damn thing we can do. And that's why you're not hearing anything say anything. There's a darn thing we do. I think they snookered right in. I think they're going to get their way. And I think the only thing we can do is cause havoc for them. And that's going to cost us. You see what I'm saying? It's going to make us look like he pulled a great one. Darn it, I hate him, but he pulled a great one.
Putin is the shrewdest dictator since Joseph Stalin. And I just read a book about Stalin and Churchill and Roosevelt and the Yalta talks, and how Stalin snookered, and he actually got Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt, butting heads, and he's sitting back there. Oh, I think I drink vodka and watch this. This is fun to watch. Oh. And basically, Putin is Pootie Poo is smart. He's a smart guy. Remember, he was the head of the KGB.
But he committed to God, I don't know why I'm giving this guy kudos, but I am.
I give him a lot of kudos.
Okay,
He's
so
shrewd.
he made smart decisions. He went in and he pulled the strength key out of the door.
Correct.
And plugged it in and said, "You're weak, Mr. President of the United States, and I'm going to show you you're weak."
Correct.
And he basically humiliated the administration. And here's the scariest thing about that whole thing. No matter what all the bullet points on the news, wow, we weren't expecting that. Really?
Well, there you go.
Really? I'm gonna give myself a doorbell
you should give
because
yourself
I'm just thinking,
that's
how
free doorbells,
how
man.
can you have an NSA, a CIA, and see the buildup and not put 2 and 2 together to make 4? They added 2 to 2 and got 10, and I don't get that. How do you not know?
Okay, so now I'm going to touch on something else that we really need to talk about.
All right.
We have an impotent foreign policy, totally incompetent.
Dead. That's what you meant, right?
Well, it's
Yeah.
we won't allow our military to rise to the occasion.
I say dead. Go ahead. Right. You're right. Okay.
It goes back to this.
I can see where you're going.
You voters out there are partially responsible for this because you wanted us out of Afghanistan, out of Iraq. I get it. And Obama came in and he says, "I promise I'll get you out of Afghanistan, out of Iraq.
And we'll even give you a date."
And God bless him. He delivered on his promise. So don't beat up on him when now we're in this mess because he took it a step. He said, "You like that? I'm out of these areas too."
Right.
So he led from behind, got a little bit involved in Libya. That turned into a disaster.
Yep.
And he led upside down and did somersaults backwards with Syria. He should have been arming the moderates 4 years ago when they pleaded for help.
We had a chance when it all started. He drew a line. What probably
that was in the middle of it.
That's what I'm saying. Further down the road than he should have. But at the time it happened, with our influence over there, we could have taken a stance to help, right? And we didn't, because we had these 60s type people walking in the streets.
You mean the sprout heads?
No war, no war, no war. What? Well, whatever I'm saying, not realizing that at some point in your history of freedom, you have to do things that demand leadership and hard decisions, right, to keep yourself intact. And we just laid down. We laid down, and we did, didn't we? Your opinion?
The isolationists in the 1930s in the U.S. and the British and the French. They did not want to confront Adolf Hitler. And Neville Chamberlain came back. He said, "I believe we have found peace in our time." And you can see how well that worked out.
Yeah.
And, so this thing about what Neville Chamberlain did, and with this recent thing about what Obama did with the Iranians, is equally, it's a full circle thing.
Yeah,
so we're repeating history all over again.
Right, and that's because there's a lot of parallels no matter what happens.
That's the value of history,
and that's what I'm saying. You learn from it supposedly, but there's parallels, and you look back and you say, "Wow, there's a lot of comparisons here." And why aren't we using those? You know what? I used to hear people say, and this is just getting into a little psychology. I've forgiven that person, and I raise my hand. And I go, "Well, that's great, but hopefully you hadn't forgot what happened." And they go, "Well, yeah, I forgot and forgot." I said, "There's no such thing. You understand? You never forget. You forgive, but you don't forget, so it doesn't come back and kick you in the butt again."
Correct.
Okay? Or if you don't learn from it, then that's your own bad call. So same thing here, right? So, all right, I want to hear your opinions on what's going to happen. You even mentioned at the beginning of the show, well, Russia's over there and we're about ready to start World War III. Where are you leaning? I mean, this is serious. Do you understand the world? We're at a place in our world right now.
No, you're absolutely right.
Where we're talking about revolution in our own streets. You're talking about class warfare. You're talking about war. You're talking about these guys that are savage. I mean, and they can get nukes. I mean, where are we going? Are we there?
Look, I don't like to run around saying that
we're
on the verge of World War III, but we're very easily on the verge of World War III.
Cuba.
62, and here we are again. And by the way, each time we came close to it, it was a confrontation with the Russians. Back then, they were the Soviet Union.
Right.
Putin wants to bring back Mother Russia. He
Right.
has a fantasy of that. So we basically have the Soviet Union all over again.
Right.
The Cold War is back. I don't even know why they even talk about, we don't want the Cold War to come back.
Well, it's been back.
It's been back. Why,
Yeah.
what is it that you guys don't understand about this?
And this is what I'm talking about. Our congressmen and our politicians that run this country, that we invested our vote to make good decisions, right, are caught off guard with all the information they have. Seriously.
Well, I
don't get that, John. Nobody can answer that for me. What happened?
Well, I think that there are some good congressmen who are on top of it. I think McCall.
I understand that.
Our own McCall in
statement.
Texas is the guy. He's been right on it. I give him a lot of credit.
The Rubio got up and called it at the debate when he said this is what's going to happen, and sure enough, it did. And everybody's like, oh, that's not going to happen. Even Romney said that back in the last election. And said the geopolitical stuff that's going on in Russia was going to affect us.
And Obama did that intellectual snobbery thing, knocked him down, made him look bad. And by the way, I didn't like Mitt Romney. He was.
I mean,
he couldn't figure out what he was. Basically, that was his problem.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm just saying he made at least he was right about the future of what Russia was trying to do. He had a good insight.
He was right on the button.
He was right on the button about that, and that was my point. So what are we going to do? I say we've already lost that one. What are you going to do?
Well,
this is talking as American guys, right?
I think we have, because we can't go in there and start. We don't want to send troops in there, and quite frankly, I'm concerned that if we do, it's going to become a bigger quagmire. Assad.
Right now, it would be.
Assad is such an evil butcher.
I understand.
He's the one who started all this.
I understand.
Why we couldn't have gotten rid of him a couple years ago, but maybe there's things. This is the other thing.
Okay.
When I was in Croatia and Bosnia, I learned so many things by being over there. I'm talking about when I was there during the war.
Oh, you were there during the mess?
We had a respite camp for children who were victimized by the war. We had the surviving kids from Srebrenica.
Wow.
And you hear the inside story. CNN does. We only hear one side. By the way, people didn't know. We're in Texas here. Dubrovnik was showed relentlessly by the Yugoslavian Navy.
Right.
And then they started aiming their guns down on top of Dubrovnik.
On top of it, yeah.
And why the world watched? They were horrified because Dubrovnik is known as the jewel of the Adriatic.
Right.
And it came out later that President Tuđman, who is the new president of Croatia, you know what he said? He said, "We must allow Dubrovnik to be shelled because it is our Alamo."
Wow.
And what it did is it raised the level of patriotism so high in the Croatians. They said, "Remember Dubrovnik, we must push them back." And they did the Crimea.
Brought out their
the rage,
their patriotism,
and it worked.
Right, and it worked.
And they routed all the Serbs out of the Crimea region, which, by the way, we gave them a lot of help. We'll have another conversation about that.
All right. So enough of war. We kind of I think we both understand there's no easy answer at this point. There's none. There's very little option. I'm almost calling this one. I think Russia's going to take over the darn Syria thing, and I think they're going to get a foothold, and I don't think there's a darn thing we can do because we waited and we got out of the way. We left the vacuum in Iraq. Everybody knew, me, you, everybody in the street knew if we pulled everybody out, we were going to lose it. I knew that the day they went in. If they weren't going to stay and rebuild the infrastructure and have people there to take care of the country while we got it to a point where they really could take care of themselves, there was no way. Now we're losing Bible history. We're losing beautiful, unbelievable stuff out of that's been around since ancient times. It's being
the Greeks and the Romans.
Christians are being persecuted for no reason. I mean, it's crazy.
It's serious ethnic cleansing, and these ISIS guys, by the way, they are absolute barbarians who are psychopaths on steroids.
Yep.
Those are all psychopaths there.
I know. Like I said, I don't have an answer, and I don't claim to.
The only good thing is if we just get out and say, screw it, we can't do anything with Syria. So Putin props up the Assad guy who's a real
idiot.
Evil.
Right.
Maybe then they will go after and crush ISIS, the might of the Russian military. That's the only good thing I can see. But what we're forgetting about is that Iran is going to occupy most of Iraq and parts of Syria.
And they're teaming up. And here we have a stupid treaty.
That's
to give them hundreds of billions of dollars to support their military and to build.
But it's peace in our time.
It's bullcrap. And you know that, and I know that, and the American people know that, but politicians are hard-headed, and they really think they believe their lies now. They believe their own lies. That's what amazes me.
Well, you got to follow the money again. Let's go back to the
I know. Okay. All right. I got you.
Just follow the money.
Okay. Follow the money. All right. So let me talk to you about one more thing. We've only got like 15 more minutes, and we'll stair step back to our debt. I don't understand how debt works for a country really well. I don't. I admit it, But when I see 20 trillion, I wonder, can that ever be solved? And there's only 3 ways you can eliminate debt and keep hyperinflation from setting in down the road if you keep kicking the can.
You're right on that.
You raise taxes, you print more money, or you have hyperinflation.
Correct.
So which one of those great choices do we have now? Because you can't raise taxes much more, because you've already got so much tax on people, not just federal, FICA, you got gas tax, you got sales tax, you've got cable tax, you got phone bill tax, and you start adding up all the money comes out of your pocket. For every dollar you spend, you're probably losing 52 cents, right? So what do?
You remove, you have realign the progressive tax and remove the loopholes for the wealthy.
Right, but
they don't need the loopholes anymore.
But do you think that top 1
and you give the middle class a break? Okay,
right. So, but do you really think that the top 1 to 4% would solve that problem, since they already pay like 88% or 90% of the total taxes that are sent into the revenue system? I mean, to me, a lot of those big rich people do give a lot of money back to charities. They do, people like Bill Gates, who people don't criticize because of the money.
Yeah, and I don't want to pick on, I'm not picking on the wealthy in general, but I'm saying that the system is still rigged.
Yeah, well, and yeah, the people that are the most important people, period, is the small business guy that used to be 80% of the businesses. If you knock them down and they can't go into business, and they don't have breaks, and they don't have ways to excel, and they're burdened, and they got paperwork out the gazoo that makes no sense, right? And you lose that base, where do we go from there? Because that tax revenue goes bye-bye.
Well, it's interesting you bring this up, because I actually wrote a blog about this whole thing years ago, when we had that so-called stimulus package.
Right.
If Obama had just taken 20% of that stimulus package and opened up incubators for qualified entrepreneurs to start their own businesses, and
you are so right.
Given people who are experts at helping companies to become good at what they do, we would have had so many new jobs so much more quickly. But he gave it all away look at where that money was going to go, to people who are related to the construction industry, which is the labor union sector, who were his friends who got him elected.
The unions in the labor sector that had the vote and the push.
So you go back full circle again.
Right. So my thing is that had he had taken that stimulus money, like you said, great point on the incubators and spreading it out to the small business community. You know, that money, literally, they had figured out you could have given Americans each $221,000 apiece.
I know. It
And
was
so
ridiculous.
imagine giving that back to the business world, putting it up there and allocate it out to businesses that could have been incubators to hire people and put it in. It just makes total sense.
And by the way, have a real SBA program like they used to. The original intention, the SBA program.
It's a bank.
It's a joke.
It's a bank. It's the same qualifications if you tried to go to your bank across the street.
Exactly.
You got to jump through all these hoops. You know, you're better off running a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding for your small business.
Taking the advantage of that for Starbucks.
And that's what you should do. Cool. So, the debt, $20 trillion.
How do we get out of it?
What do we do? Because the Congress is not going to allow their programs to go away. So the crap we always hear about, well, we're going to shut that down or shut this down, or we're going to drill this down. See, I don't think they believe the American people can survive and be creative and genius at the creative level to change that. Do you understand?
Oh, I agree with you.
And I don't get that, because to me, it would seem like that if you gave people the ability to want to buy in to help organizations, right, to step up, to be taught right how to take care of your neighbor, so to speak, right? You don't need the government to supply this program. They can be nonprofit funded. They could have people interested in it. But private sector is a very, very, very smart group of people. I'm talking about all of us collectively.
Boy, I'll tell you, there's things that you're going down a whole different.
I know,
and that's good. No, that's good. But what I was going to say is there are a lot of nonprofits who I don't think warrant nonprofit status anymore.
I agree.
The YMCA is one of them.
It's
a big corporation.
I posted a little on Planned Parenthood. I'm not going to get in that argument. I'm not going to go there, but guess what? We
probably agree, though, on some of that.
I bet we do, but you know what I posted? They're a 501c3. I don't know if people realize
why?
A 501c3 cannot be politically motivated at all. They cannot take sides, and they cannot oppose.
But they do.
But that's the deal. You got 501c3-4s that can make a political stance. They set it up, and if their contributions went to one side more than the other, then they are showing approval, and that is against the IRS regulations. And I posted what a 501c3-4. I posted it straight from the IRS page on my Facebook. Said read it.
Well, you bring up the IRS, and I always wanted to send an email to the IRS to say Lois Lerner lost my taxes. And I know you remember who she is.
We're in trouble now. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
she's been retired though.
Yeah, but my point is the dysfunction of laws. Dysfunction of one is okay to break, another one you can't.
Yeah,
you know,
you're right.
One you can go out here and it's okay. 11 million people can come in and not go through the front door. We have a great map for how to become a citizen of this country, right? But another law is really strictly enforced. You know, and I don't get
we need to have a whole conversation
and
about that.
We will. We'll plan out, and we'll get our notes together, and we'll figure that out. Yeah. So anyhow, guys, that was our first
Tell us what you think.
And I can't wait to put up the archive and go, oh my God, did we say that? Okay. So,
yeah, let's hear I want to hear what they think.
All right,
It'll be interesting.
So we'll put it up. Hey guys, this has been the Hurdie Burk Internet Broadcast Network. We want to thank you for listening. And remember, the doorbell always means somebody made a good point, and I rang it a lot tonight for you.
Oh, thank you.
But I didn't lay over and fold like a lawn chair, and I was really proud of myself, because I'm not near as smart as you, man. Not even close. So that's cool.
Don't sell yourself.
But I am loving this because I'm already having fun.
Yeah,
I've had a blast tonight. So guys, we're going to figure out when to do shows in the next coming weeks, what days, what times, keep it consistent.
We want their input, their feedback.
Yeah, we want your input and feedback. I'm going to put this on a real custom player. I'm going to put links to stuff, to our business stuff, so people can follow us, Twitters, whatever. So we'll have that all there. And I'll also be posting this on my Facebook group page. So if you're listening for the first time, or you happen to find the archive somewhere else and you want to go back and listen to it over and over again, you can go to Hurdie Burk Broadcast Network. And my name is spelled Hurdie, last name is Burk, Burk. Broadcast Network. That's the group. Go join it. We'll add you. It's free. And we're probably going to set up, John, our own group on there and post all the shows there eventually.
Good deal. Sounds
so
good.
you guys, we'll see you around the corner next week or so. We're gonna have fun and talk about things. We're going to try to actually come up with solutions. You know what I'd like to do is put solutions up there.
Oh, that's
I'd like to
part of my objective.
I'd like to create, John, our own content that actually gives people new information that we're not just regurgitating from what we hear, you know, which is kind of
I like
cool.
that.
All right, so good night, everybody. We'll see you around the corner. Good night.